Welcome to Three Skulls Tavern, a channel devoted to tabletop role-playing games by Free League Publishing. This show is sponsored by WorldMill, online server hosting for the Foundry Virtual Tabletop. To support the show, head over to patreon.com/MattK. For a minimum of $2 per month, you get access to a ton of extra content. Hello and welcome to Forbidden Lands Solo. This is a new campaign I'm going to be running on this channel, and before I kind of kick off with it, I wanted to have a very quick talk about what I've done to get this started. And basically, this is going to be like a session 0, but for a solo game, you don't really need to do a session 0 necessarily. But I have done a ton of prep for this, and that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about. Yeah, and not all that prep is finished. So when I actually show you some of the virtual tabletop I'm going to be using for this campaign, there will be some placeholder things that are going to be there for the first session or 3, and eventually will be replaced with automated macros, basically. So before I get started and jump in, the first thing to talk about, if you're not familiar with solo gaming, is let's very quickly talk about what solo gaming is. Why would somebody want to solo a tabletop role-playing game? Can you play a tabletop role-playing game solo, etc.? So I'm just going to do that very quickly before I talk about the tools that I'm using, and I'm going to show off basically Foundry, which is what I'm using and how I've set that up. So bear with me if you are already interested in solo roleplay, or you're already a solo role player. This won't be a very long kind of introduction to solo roleplay. It's just gonna be a quick one, just for the people who haven't maybe have heard of it before. Solo roleplaying has been around for a little while now. In fact, you could say that it's been around since the start of the hobby, because there were some choose-your-own adventures included in some of the original D&D box sets, I believe. These are the choose-your-own adventures are basically where you have a bit of at it says at some point, if you want to turn left, go to 13. If you turn right, go to 26. And you follow the numbers on different pages, and the story progresses down different paths depending on the options you choose. And one of the early Dungeons & Dragons box sets, I believe, had a solitaire adventure or solo adventure like that in it, where you actually created a character, and that character went through one of these kind of stepped stories. But you were rolling for skills, and you were rolling, having a full combat before you actually decided, like, if you beat them, then you would go on. Otherwise, I guess you'd die. I've never actually played it, but I've heard people talk about it before. That then spun off a big slew of similar adventures with, I think, Tunnels and Trolls throughout the early 80s, and that's been kind of a part of our hobby for quite a long time. That's not what I'm doing here, first of all, but that's the kind of that's kind of how people used to solo their role-playing games. Then, at some point, probably about 10 to 15 years ago, Taina Pigeon created a game called Mythic GM Emulator. Well, the game was called Mythic, and there was a GM emulator called Mythic alongside it. And that has kind of become the gold standard that a lot of people have used since. So in sort of the last 10 to 15 years, most solo role players have used that as the starting point. And that's spun off of a lot of similar GM emulators, which have tried to basically take the place of a GM and allow you to play any tabletop role-playing game, it doesn't matter about the system, and have a way to handle questions you might ask the GM. So the idea is that you're constantly asking what's called an oracle, questions that have a kind of yes or no answer to it. And the way you roll the dice, there's a chaos factor. The more chaos there is, the more likely you're going to get I think it's either a yes or no question, depending on how you're phrasing it. And that basically decides what happens in the story. It also has a bunch of other things that we won't go into. But from there, that spun off a bunch of additional games and emulators to help play solo. And a few years ago, a game came out called Ironsworn. And Ironsworn was really exciting because it basically built an entire game engine around a solo experience. And in addition to that, it had a ton of what it was calling oracles. Oracles really just being random tables, but random tables with things like actions and themes and names and all this sorts of stuff. So you could kind of roll on an action plus a theme, and you would get an answer in an oracle that isn't just a yes or no question. So if you wanted to determine something, you could roll this, and it would give you like 2 words that if you stuck them together, you could try, like, have a think about what that means and stick them together, and it gives you an answer, it gives you a bit of flavor, or it gives you something in the narrative of your story to kind of bite onto and take forward. And I've played that game solo. It's very, very fun. I've also played it co-op, and that for me was my pivotal moment when I started solo role playing. And I still haven't done much of it because of my various podcasting and YouTube commitments. I'm in a lot of traditional group games, but I do have a special soft spot in my heart for solo role playing, and that's what I'm trying to do more of, and why I'm doing it on this channel, to kind of highlight it a bit, and also show how you can possibly use them with digital tools that exist today. And that's the next thing I wanted to talk about. So that's where solo gaming came from. That's how I started. Why would somebody want to do it? I guess the biggest answer is it's fun. If you like playing video games and you like single player video games, it's kind of the same thing, right? Group gaming is like a multiplayer video game. You've got other people that you're playing, you're experiencing the game with, and that can be very rewarding and very fun. But in a solo experience, you just basically still can enjoy a game. You can still do everything that not quite to the same level, or it's a little bit more involved perhaps than it would be in a group, because you don't have a dedicated person there basically handling the story for you. You've got to do it yourself. But it's very rewarding, and it's very interesting to see how your story can evolve through the magic of oracles, on how the story goes in all sorts of zany directions, how things start tying together. It's really incredible. And hopefully we'll be seeing that as I do this game. I have no doubts in my mind that that's going to be the case, because every time I've done like a solo game, I've been blown away by how interesting the whole narrative has become. So that's why, kind of in a nutshell. You can do it. You don't need to so there's some benefits that come out of this as well from solo role playing. You don't have to worry about scheduling. You don't have to think about, we're only getting together once a week or once a month or whenever, so we need to make sure that we have a chunk of time, like 4 hours or whatever, to play this game. You can literally pick up a solo role-playing game, play it for 20 minutes, put it down, leave it for a week, come back, play another 20 minutes, put it down for a month, come back, play it for 2 hours straight. It doesn't really matter. You can do it whenever you have time. There's no pressure from anyone else. If you need to stop the game and look up a rule, you can take an hour to look up the rule, go down a rabbit hole with the rules, go online and look up like supplementary rules or whatever, and no one's there sitting there waiting for you to continue the game. So those are some big side benefits of playing solo is, you just basically can go at your own pace, and there's no pressure from anyone else to perform or anything else. Unfortunately for me, there is going to be a pressure to perform, because I'm doing this for a YouTube actual play. So it's going to be a little bit different in that respect for me, but I've been podcasting and YouTubing for 3+ years now, so I'm kind of used to it, and that's for me isn't a big enough drawback for me not to want to do it here. So that's what it's all about. That's why I'm doing it. That's why maybe you might be interested in doing it. And now we're going to talk about the tool that I'm going to be using, the main tool, and all the other kind of supplementary tools and things that are going to go alongside this. So the big thing I'm using is Foundry. It is a virtual tabletop. You might have noticed during the intro that Foundry is one of our sponsors on this show, and I love Foundry. It's amazing. I've used virtual tabletops over the years, many different ones. I've used Roll20, I've used Gtove, I've tried out Fantasy Grounds, etc. Anyway, Foundry is relatively new on the market, but it's very powerful, it's amazing, and it, for my purposes here with Forbidden Lands, has official support for the game Forbidden Lands. It's a premium module that you can buy, and it basically puts all the rules, all the NPCs, everything into compendiums, which is kind of like databases within the program, so that you can automatically refer to the entire rulebook. The entire rulebook is held in this program right now. All of the stuff is automated, hyperlinked together. It's really easy to find things, and it just is going to make my life a lot easier when it comes to looking things up, making rolls, keeping the game going. So that's what I'm using here. I'm going to show you now the setup that I'm using. I have two what are called scenes here. You can see at the top, I've got this welcome scene. The welcome scene is really my landing scene, and for the moment, if I have any combat, which I'm hoping, because my characters are pretty pathetic at the moment, I'm hoping there won't be too much. I'll introduce my characters in a minute as well, but first let me show you how Foundry works. So this welcome screen, if I zoom out a bit, I have used this a little bit as a dumping ground for all the various tables and things I want to look up. It looks very, very intimidating. I know it looks like somebody's notes spread out when you're going to be playing a game, but that's okay. And this is one of the things I'm going to be tidying up for later sessions. I'm going to get rid of a lot of these extra tables, and they're going to be moved into these databases, these compendiums. And I'll be able to put down here at the bottom, these are called macros. I have 5 bars of these where I can kind of filter through. I'm using 3 of them at the moment. And I can fill those up with macros, what are called macros, where I can, at a single click, I can roll on any of these oracles. It will randomly select one of the options, and it will output it into my into this chat bar here on the side. So that's the future. At the moment, for example, I've got some different ones here. These oracles, for example, you can see are saying card. You draw a card, normal playing card, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, etc. I have here a card macro to do that. Some of them are from Ironsworn, the game I was talking about. These, again, are just temporary. I will be replacing these. And these use a D100 roll, so I've got a D100 oracle roll here as well. And for everything else, I've kind of got other dice rollers. So the idea is when I need to roll on an oracle, I'll look it up, I'll roll a dice, and I'll consult the table. And it'll be very quick. So for example, if I wanted to see action in theme, I could roll this twice. 1 click and another click. And I've got 52 and 58. So my action would be serve, and my theme would be language. Serve language. So I'd have to think about how that would apply in the situation I'm in if I was rolling on that. So that's just a quick example of how I'll be using those. Right. The second tab here, Ravenlands, is my overworld map. And if I click on my character here, I have, as you can see, I have a Fog of War over the Hex map, the overworld map. And if I take that off to show you what the map looks like, this is a custom map this is the official map that Free League have made available on their forum. It's over 1 gigabyte in size as a layered PSD file, so you can do whatever you want with it. So I've actually taken off things like the legend, I've taken off all of the settlements that were on the map, etc., all the writing, so it's literally just a blank map. And I've then also changed the hex size, so I've put in about twice as many hexes to make this a much bigger map in terms of how large the area is. It means it's going to last a lot longer, I can travel a lot longer to get to places. It's also why these sort of you can tell that these landmarks were made for a hex map, and they don't really match anymore the hexes that are on here. But that's fine. So this is the map I'm going to be going with. This entire region here in the bottom right of the map, down here, this is the halfling starting point, where that kin comes from in the lore. I'm playing a halfling character, and this is my starting point. And I have a little reason why I'm leaving the halfling settlement to head off in this direction. So we'll be talking about that in a minute. But basically, I just click on this character here, and I can move them. And as I move this token around, it will basically reveal the Fog of War, and you can see it's a bit lighter right around the hex that I'm currently in. That will always be the case, and every time I move, it will clear the fog, but it will make it kind of faded. And that's basically it. The rest, I think, to talk around, you'll see the rest of it in action as we go. I can show you very quickly how the character sheets look as I introduce my characters. So, yeah. So this is the next thing. The characters. The first main character I'm going to be rolling with is Udo. It's actually, his name is Udo Pebbletoes. It's a kind of silly name, but that's okay. It's a name that actually I used for a halfling character in a D&D campaign a very long time ago. He was one of my favorite characters, so I've revived that character with the same name. So it's a different setting, different character kind of, but kept the name. I created this character using, I'm not going to show the PDF, I'll just show this here, the Forbidden Lands Legends and Adventures booklet, and inside it basically has a very light life path system to go through and create characters. Udo is 20 years old. I chose to make him young, but because I'm playing in a solo game and I don't have a team of adventurers around me, I've actually given him an additional formative event, which gives him 2 additional skills and 1 additional talent to what he would normally get for his age. And that, to me, feels kind of like the right way of handling things. So I'm quite happy with how he's ended up. The only it was random apart from... Oh, actually, I shouldn't say it was random. The only things I randomly rolled for were for his upbringing and for his 2 formative events. So his upbringing was... Just look that up for a halfling again. I can't remember off the top of my head. A loner, I believe. 4443. That's right. So, yeah, his upbringing was that he was a loner, and then he had 2 childhood events, which are formative events, I should say. I looked up the rogue ones. We'll talk about his profession in a second, because the profession isn't an official profession. I rolled on the rogue tables for his profession, and I got Stole from the Wrong Person, which gave me lockpicks and the lightning fast talent. And I also rolled Successful Heist, where I planned to successfully perform a heist, which gave me the lucky talent, which is incredibly good, especially in solo. In fact, lightning fast is also really good for combat. I get to draw 2 initiative cards and keep the one that I want. So that's also going to be really good. Lucky means if there's a critical against me, I get to roll. I'll have to check it, but I think I can roll twice. I can just click here and look. I can re-roll once, and then I keep the lowest result. Yeah, so that's pretty handy. And that basically exactly fit in with the character idea I had. I wanted to play a burglar. And the burglar is like a fan supplement called New Professions 1. I actually wrote it. It has 3 additional professions for Forbidden Lands. 1 is the burglar, 1 is an artisan, like a blacksmith or a carpenter, that sort of thing. And the final one is a scion being like a noble-born person. And the burglar basically is a non-combat thiefy type of character, and I've chosen that because the rogue is very kind of combat focused, almost like an assassin in Forbidden Lands, and I wanted to make some character concepts that were less combat focused. So the burglar is what I'm playing, and the only thing that decides on is the talents that are available. And this, I mean, I wrote all these, but they are kind of based on some of the, I did try and make sure that they were in line with the core books. So Path of Shadows is basically, the first one is to do with sneak attacks. The second one is makes it easier for me to sneak. The difficulty for my stealth range bands becomes easier. So I can sneak up on people a bit easier. And then the final thing is misdirection. I can fool my targets when the party might have otherwise been noticed. So I can roll stealth to guide a party in a stealth maneuver, spending willpower points to basically cover up failures that have happened to help help the other PCs through. That's going to be less important in a solo game, but I do have this is the second thing I'll talk about in a second. You can see there's another PC here called Yubi. We'll get to her in a second. In terms of gear, I have a hand axe and a knife. I don't have any marksmanship, but I do have 2 points in melee, so I'm kind of like the melee fighter. Being a halfling is kind of interesting. We'll see how that goes. I have a backpack with a blanket in it, flint and steel, lockpicks, and I have a dark cloak, which makes it easier for me to sneak around at night. So, that's my character. For my bio, my pride is you can be nigh invisible when you don't want to be seen. And my dark secret is I cannot resist the lure of a shiny bauble or trinket. And I think that's where we're going to leave Udo. So Udo is my main PC. Udo is who I am going to be playing in this solo game. However, because Forbidden Lands is quite a deadly game, wandering out into the Ravenlands alone is a pretty stupid idea. So I decided that I would create a sidekick. And this is something that some people do in solo gaming, not everyone does. And the idea here is there are 2 ways I could have handled this. One is I could just have a sidekick who basically can give me some positive modifiers on certain rolls to help me out. That is actually how I'm going to be using her for most of the time. But I actually decided to make a full-blown character because of Foundry. Everything is automated, really easy to control. So I went ahead and I created a second character, Yubi, who is a goblin, and she's straight out of the core rulebook. She's a hunter. She has no willpower, actually, so I'm going to get rid of that. That was me playing around before. Good at agility, good at marksmanship, well, 2 in marksmanship. She's also good at stealth, probably better than me at stealth, actually. Raw ability, when you take that into consideration. Her survival's not great, but she's good at scouting. She's got decent insight, manipulation, 1 in manipulation, and that's kind of it. I haven't given her a second formative event, so to speak. So she is a young goblin directly out of the book with nothing added to her. And that's because she's a sidekick. She's there to make sure that I don't die or to give me a bit more survivability, but really the focus when I'm playing is going to be on Udo as my main character. So we'll just have a quick look. Talent-wise, she's got the Nocturnal one. Path of the Forest is her talent, which is all about foraging, hunting, or leading the way. She can spend a willpower point to automatically succeed. She can basically automatically succeed to endure cold, which could also be important. And she can spend a willpower point eventually to not need to eat or drink during a full day. Those are later ranks. She only has 1 rank in this to start off with. And then she also has the Sharpshooter talent. The Sharpshooter talent means that when she's firing her bow, she gets a +1 to her roll to hit, which is also going to help, hopefully, with survivability. Gear-wise, she has a short bow, 2 throwing knives, a backpack with a blanket, a small tent, and that's it. She has D12 arrows and a short bow. I did actually looked at the formative events for her, so I kind of created her using this booklet again, but I cherry-picked the things I wanted, so I didn't actually roll for her. I just kind of looked at the various bits and stuck them together. She was meant to get a longbow with the formative event I picked out, but I thought that didn't really fit with a goblin, so I went with a short bow instead, but otherwise kept extra arrows, etc. So, those are the characters. I can actually find them fairly quickly. I have this thing down here. You can't actually see the writing, but it says GM screen. If I click on that, up pops a little kind of GM screen, and I've filled those with the 2 character sheets. So if I very quickly need to make any rolls or anything, I can just click on that. Up they come. I can click on the different tabs. I can click to roll something. Just literally click on that sleight of hand. Up will come the... Ooh. It doesn't come up. Interesting. So I can't actually roll from here. I mean, I can control it with like marking things. I can mark willpower and stuff, so that will be useful. But it looks like I can't actually roll directly from it. So no, it doesn't look like that's possible at all. So that's good to know, actually. Huh. Well, anyway, this is something I might play around with. I might replace what's in this GM screen. In fact, what this currently is, if I show you here, it seems to be bugging at the moment here. Okay, here we go. In fact, I might have just been bugging out a little bit. There are actually 4 columns here and 3 rows. So there are 12 kind of cells here that I can fill with literally anything I want. I can put, I could put a villager in here. It's got the villager stats from the book. I can put anything that is in the database I can stick in here. But for the moment, I'm keeping it as my 2. And I'm just going to quickly see if the rolling is working again. So sleight of hand. Still not. Still not. Okay, so I can't use that to roll. Good to know. Anyway, and I think that's really it. I've got all these macros we'll be going through as we play. I have a bunch of modules installed. In fact, if you're interested, if you know Foundry, you want to see what I'm using here, if I click on Manage Modules, go ahead and pause the screen. Now you can see the first bit of it. I've got 25, as you can see. And then if I scroll down, you can see the last ones from libwrapper down. These are all the modules I've currently got installed that I'm using here. So there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Modules are like mods. If you've ever played or modded a Bethesda game like The Elder Scrolls, like Skyrim or Fallout 3, New Vegas, or 4, it kind of feels a little bit like that. I'm putting all these mods in to kind of increase the functionality of Foundry behind the scenes. That doesn't really matter too much. I've done everything I've chosen has been with the solo game in mind, and that is basically it. So I think I've talked enough about the setup on how things have gotten started, and I think I'm going to be jumping into the game. I've just I actually I do have some Patreon supporters watching live right now. I've just had the question being asked, how do I roll? The way I will have to roll is I'll have to go over to this actor tab here, click on my character, and then I can click on sleight of hand, and up comes this window here. And if I have any modifiers or gear I want to use here, I can add those in like this. I can put negative modifiers in. I hit roll. They get rolled on the tabletop, and over here it shows the results here. If I want to push, I've got this little skull at the top here. I click that, and then it will push. And it'll show me my pushed results. So in that case, I would have taken 2 agility damage, but I would have had 2 successes. Anyway, so that's how it works. It doesn't automatically add willpower points. It doesn't automatically reduce my attributes or anything like that. So I'll have to do that myself. But that's how I roll. So I'm going to clear the chat log here. So we're ready to go for the first session. And I'm recording all this in one night. I'm going to be recording probably 1 or 2 of my first sessions as well in one go. But I'm going to be editing these so they hopefully are a little bit more slick. And they'll be going out in chunks. So you'll see me wearing the same clothes for the first few episodes. And my voice will probably be getting more and more hoarse as we go. In fact, I need to grab some water before I start this next one. So thanks for watching this this session 0, this intro to this new Forbidden Lands solo campaign. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask in the comments below. Or if you you'll find the links for all of the various online social media communities and things that I'm in. They're also in the bar here at the bottom of the screen. And yeah, come ask me a question. Come join the Discord. Discord's getting bigger all the time. And yeah, I'll catch you next time for episode 1.